Art of War by Sun Tzu. Chapter 2. Waging War. How to operate the battlefield. The skillful soldier does not raise a second levy, neither are his supply wagons loaded more than twice. Bring war material with you from home, but forage on the enemy. Thus the army will have food enough for its needs. Party of the state exchequer causes an army to be maintained by contributions from a distance. Contributing to maintain an army at a distance causes the people to be impoverished. On the other hand, the proximity of an army causes prices to go up, and high prices cause the people's substance to be drained away. When their substance is drained away, the peasantry will be afflicted by having exactions. Sun Tzu believed that war is extremely costly and will consume the country's food, population, and money, eventually pushing up prices, increasing taxes, and causing a serious national deficit. Therefore, the best strategy is to supply our army from the enemy country. Taking the Russian-Ukrainian war as an example, Ukraine announced a national conscription and repeatedly extended the conscription time, doing everything possible to prevent men who have reached the conscription age from evading service. At the end of November last year, Zelensky announced a new conscription plan. According to Ukrainian media reports, many scandals have been exposed around the conscription issue. Ukraine's conscription of men has reached the 13th time, and young people over the age of 15 have to go to the battlefield to fight. In recent months, women have gradually entered the scope of Ukrainian conscription. Russia is not as exaggerated as Ukraine. Russia's private conscription requirements were that men were between 18 and 27 years old. The new regulations announced have extended this range to 30 years old. Russian President Putin recently signed several decrees, including raising taxes on company and high-income individuals to alleviate the financial difficulties caused by the surge in Ukrainian war spending. It is said that the Russian federal government's deficit in the first half of this year has reached $32 billion, accounting for 0.5% of GDP. After the Russian Duma and the Federation Council voted and passed the relevant bills, Moscow published the presidential decree to increase taxes on the government's official website. Since Russia launched a special military operation against Ukraine in February 2022, the country's public expenditure has exceeded its revenue by tens of billions of euros. In the first half of this year, the Russian Federation's deficit reached 0.5% of GDP, and the full-year deficit is expected to reach to 1.1%, which is still far lower than most major economies in the world. At the same time, Russia, which is under Western sanctions, cannot raise funds in the international market to make up for this fiscal imbalance. Russia announced that it would impose new tax rates of 80%, 20%, and 22% on the highest income earners, and increase corporate profit tax from 20% to 25%. Officials revealed in middle May this year that Russia's military budget this year will surge by nearly 70% to 140 billion. Last year, its military budget was 60 billion. In order to rationalize military spending, military production will be further increased. In May, Putin fired Sergei Shoigu, the former experienced defense minister who had been in office for 12 years, and appointed Andrei Belousov, an economist with no military experience. This also shows one side that the importance of the current Russian economy to the Russian-Ukrainian war. With this loss of substance and exhaustion of strength, the homes of the people will be stripped bare, and 3/10 of their income will be dissipated. Will government expense for broken chariots, worn-out horses, breastplates, and helmets, bows, and arrows, spears, and shields, practical metals, draft auction, and heaven wagons will amount to 4/10 of this total revenue. Sun Tzu believes that if the war dragged on for too long, the country's national strength would decline, and the national finances would be exhausted, and everyone from the government to the people would go bankrupt. The first impact is inflation. The second impact is the decline in the total economic volume, the GDP level. The third impact is the huge debt imposed on the participating countries. Therefore, Sun Tzu's core idea is to cultivate the overwhelming advantage so that the goal can be achieved without war. Secondly, under the basic conditions of overwhelming advantages, after particular carefully calculation and planning, quickly invade other countries, quickly define the result of the war, and prevent the war from being dragged on to the greatest extent, avoiding the harm of falling into a long-term war. In terms of combat, it means slow preparation and fast action. The 4 fast and 1 slow tactics proposed by Lin Biao, a famous general in modern China. 4 fast means: first, advance quickly towards the enemy. When attacking, you must be good at taking the enemy by surprise, making long-distance raids, and quickly capturing the enemy. Second, prepare for the attack quickly. After capturing the enemy, you must be quick to check the terrain. Choose a breakthrough point, mobilize troops, deploy firepower, build the fortifications and other preparations. Third, expand the result quickly. After breaking through one point, resolutely expand the result so that the enemy cannot restore defense. Fourth, pursue quickly. After the enemy retreats, you must chase them to the end, so that they cannot escape and reorganize resistance. 1 slow means launching a general attack slowly. You must launch an attack after finding out the enemy's situation and terrain, choosing a breakthrough point, deploying troops and firepower, and making preparations. Hence, a wise general makes a point of foraging on the enemy. 1 cartload of the enemy's provisions is equivalent to 20 of one's own, and likewise, a single pickle of his provenders is equivalent to 20 from one's own store. Sun Tzu believes that relying on external forces to supply ourselves is the best mode of warfare. The traditional battle of the country is the confrontation between military combined power and financial power. In the traditional business battle is the confrontation between products and services, as well as the explorations of value flow. In both battles, power comes from oneself. We need to learn to use the power of others to achieve twice the result with half the effort. From the perspective of war, the best way to supply comes from the enemy country. Taking from the enemy and fighting to support the war. From the perspective of business, it means that business success is inseparable from the integration of advanced resources. Excellent business is always inseparable from the value concept of conforming to the times and the integration of advanced technical resources. Generally speaking, innovation will produce advanced technological products, but it is more difficult to integrate advanced technology and make it a part of human life. Edison is recognized as the inventor of the electric light, but in fact he was just the 23rd person to try to make a light bulb. The real invention of the light bulb was decades earlier than Edison's successful creation of the light bulb. Moreover, the technology used by Edison for mass production and sales of electric lights was not his own, but the technology of a British expert. He just bought a patent and applied it to corporate production. Edison did not mind taking things from others, which reflected the commercial value of the innovation to the greatest extent. His company became famous overnight, and himself became the inventor of the electric lights, while the real original inventor had been forgotten. In the field of pure technology, many people look down on Jobs and think that Apple's technology belongs to others, and Apple just integrates and manages the technology. In fact, Apple has always grasped the requirements of the times in the progress of development. Due to its foresight, people think that it seems to be leading the trend of society to a certain extent. Therefore, an advanced concept of the times, coupled with the power of advanced technical resources integration, cannot be ignored. Now, in order to kill the enemy, our men must be roused to anger, that there may be advantage from defeating the enemy. They must have their rewards. Therefore, in chariot fighting, when 10 or more chariots have been taken, those should be rewarded who took the first. Our own flags should be substituted for those of the enemy, and the chariots mingled and used in conjunction with ours. The captured soldiers should be kindly treated and kept. This is called using the conquered foe to augment one's own strengths. Sun Tzu believed that the unified thinking of the enemy and clear rewards and punishment were two elements of warfare. In ancient China, the main way to obtain military merits were beheading, climbing first, breaking the formation, beheading the general, and seizing the flag. The easiest way for ordinary soldiers to obtain military merits was beheading, cutting off the enemy's head in exchange for rewards. Climbing first means being the first to climb the enemy's tower, and then surviving by chance, and finally getting a general reward. Breaking the formation means destroying the enemy's formation, tearing open the enemy's gap, dividing the enemy's formation and breaking into enemy's interior. Beheading the general means beheading the enemy's general, and seizing the flag means destroying the enemy's messenger tool. Unified thinking is to promote strategy and culture in art, revolve around hatred, impart hatred and anger to soldiers, and even extended the ordinary people. Everyone must hate and be angry with class enemy. For example, Hitler actively promoted fascism, extreme nationalism, anti-communism, anti-capitalism, anti-Semitism, and smeared the Jewish nation. They blamed the defeat of the Germany in World War I and the economic crisis of the Weimar Republic in the 1920s on the Jews, and constantly encouraged and fan various anti-Semitic atmospheres. Eventually, the Jews become the enemy of the world, the source of evil, the seeds of disaster, and the destroyer of the order of life. According to Hitler, without a thorough understanding of the racial and Jewish issue, the German nation will not be revived. Therefore, promoting opposition and hatred in thought is an effective means of combat motivation. In war, then, let your great object be victory, not length campaigns. Thus, it may be known that the leader of armies is the arbiter of people's fate, the man on whom it depends on whether the nation shall be in peace or in peril. Therefore, Sun Tzu's idea is seeking perfection. First, preserve yourself, then pursue complete victory, and it is best to preserve the enemy as well. His anti-military thought is the idea of cautious war, the idea of not fighting, and the idea of quick war. Okay guys, that's all for this chapter. Thanks for your watching. See you.